Tamriel, Dawn's beauty in the language of the Aldmere, the nexus of creation, and the envy of princes, emperors, and gods in every dimension of existence. In our previous videos on the history of the Elder Scrolls, we have centered our tale almost exclusively on the fate of the continent's dragonborn emperors of man, with a focus on the brood of Talos Stormcrown, the Septim dynasty. In this episode, the status quo which had endured for 4,000 years would come crashing down as the dragonborn line is eliminated, man's covenant with Akatosh is extinguished, and the peoples of Tamriel stare straight into the jaws of the father of Cataclysm. The Oblivion Crisis looms upon the horizon. If learning the lore of Tamriel makes you want to create a world of your own, then take advantage of the special offer from our sponsor, Skillshare. They're an online learning platform with endless volumes of easy-to-follow courses on everything and anything you need to train your creative skills. There are thousands of courses on creative writing alone, and if you want to build the next great fantasy universe, try Writing a Fantasy Novel for Beginners, hosted by professional writing teacher Matthew Dewey, packed with wisdom on plots, characters, and world building to let you start out with all the hard lessons already learned. You can also use Skillshare to learn animation, illustration, filmography, business, life hacks, and one topic that's been of use to us over the years, video editing. It's all ad-free, and new courses are constantly being released, so there's always more and more content to explore. It's also available on mobile and is designed to be consumed in short bursts to fit your courses around your schedule, very useful. And as for that special offer, the first 1,000 people to join Skillshare via our link in the description or by using code Wizards and Warriors will get a trial month for free. Despite its calamitous end on the distant shores of Akavir, the reign of Uriel V had a relatively stabilizing effect on the Third Empire. The late emperor's successors, Uriel VI, Murihatha, and Pelagius IV, ruled over a relatively peaceful Tamriel. However, when Pelagius IV was succeeded by his son, Uriel VII, trouble would return to the realm once more. More than any emperor before him, Uriel VII's tenure was defined by interactions with a procession of nameless, faceless heroes who time and again helped him restore order and justice to the realm. In the early days of Uriel's reign, he relied heavily on the counsel of his battle mage, Yegar Tharn. Under Yegar's guidance, the young emperor was able to strengthen imperial control over the troublesome eastern provinces, most notably by assimilating the Dunmer Great House of Hlaalu, and using them as a spearhead to spread imperial culture throughout Morrowind. However, as Uriel's skill in statecraft began to outpace his advisor, Yegar began to fear that his usefulness to the emperor would run dry. In a bid to preserve his position of power, the battle mage used a sordid artifact known as the Staff of Chaos to imprison Uriel in a realm of oblivion, using illusion magic to impersonate the emperor himself and continue to rule in his place. Under Yegar's neglectful rule, the unity of Tamriel began to shatter. The Dark Elves and Argonians clashed in the Arnesian War, while Skyrim violently annexed territories in eastern High Rock and Hammerfell, and the Khajiit and Bosmer fought a territorial border skirmish in their dense native forests. This era of chaos, known as the Simulacrum, was ended when one of those aforementioned faceless heroes, known simply as the Eternal Champion, revealed Tharn's deception, defeated him, rescued Uriel from oblivion, and restored the rightful emperor to the throne. Remarkably, the emperor was able to stabilize his realm once more, mainly through use of the Blades. On top of being the emperor's honor guard, the elite warriors descended from Reman's Akaviri Dragon Guard now also operated as covert agents throughout the provinces, restoring order through clever political subterfuge. One of these agents was the second of Uriel's nameless heroes, the Champion of Daggerfall. When Tiber Septim's erstwhile brass god, the Numidium, resurfaced in Iliac Bay, this champion navigated the complex political waters of the region to ensure that not only would the big walker of the Dwemer finally disappear from Nirn and cause no more chaos, but that the highly fractured petty kingdoms of High Rock became more unified and loyal to the empire than ever before. Of course, while the emperor was putting out fires in the west, new ones had lit up in the east. In 3E 427, pillars of ash plumed from Red Mountain, choking the air, while a virulent plague, known as Corpus, infected highborn and low alike. The powers of Vivec, Almalexia and Sotha-Sil, the divine tribunal, were weakening. Before the tribunal were gods, they had been mere advisors to the great Chima lord Indoril Nerevar, but had betrayed and murdered him in order to usurp the lost heart of Tamriel's creator god, through which they became gods themselves. As Morrowind choked, Emperor Uriel VII found a prisoner in the Imperial City dungeons, released him, and sent him to the ancient Dunmer homeland. Uriel knew that this prisoner was the Nerevarine, the reincarnation of Indoril Nerevar, destined to restore balance in the east. It is unknown how the Emperor identified this hero of fate, but sure enough, the Nerevarine served his purpose. When he found the heart of Lorkhan beneath Red Mountain, cast it from the mortal realm, and in so doing, ended not only the plague-choking Morrowind, but also the divinity of the Tribunal, which had ruled it for thousands of years. The situation in Morrowind had been stabilized, but in 3E 433, the largest and final crisis would loom its ugly head. It is here that we must take a brief moment to discuss the life and times of a man with a dream of creating paradise, Mankar Camorin. Mankar's father was Haemon, a royal pretender, who during the imperial reign of Sepphoris Septim II had usurped the Bosmeri throne from King Kaltos Camorin and used the Wood Elf armies at his disposal to launch a devastating invasion across western Tamriel. The usurper's dread crusade was halted by the United Bretons of High Rock in 3E 267. However, his pregnant mistress, a Bosmer named Kalis, fled into the wilderness of Dwynnen, where she gave birth to his son, Mankar. Much of Mankar's life is shrouded in mystery. Even his appearance is an enigma, for despite being ostensibly born of Wood Elf stock, his adult body took on a distinctly High Elf form. What is known is that, like his father Haemon, who was said to summon demons from oblivion to fight for him, Mankar developed an affinity for the Daedra. At some point, he was chosen by Marunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction. Marunes gifted his devout servant with the Mysterium Xaxes, a book so vile and corrupting to mortals that even handling it was said to drive them mad. Mankar was no exception, for he became lost in the prophecies and poetry written in the Xaxes, and through it created a new, insane vision for the world. Mankar came to believe that Mundus, the mortal realm upon which Tamriel sat, was not the nexus of creation, as many believed. Indeed, Lorkhan, the Ur-god who had created the earth, was in fact just another Daedric prince, and Tamriel was just another Daedric realm. Therefore, when the Aedra had ripped the heart from Lorkhan's body and trapped it under Red Mountain, they had essentially usurped Tamriel from its rightful Daedric owners. Therefore, Mankar had a sacred duty to help the Daedric Prince of Destruction reclaim the birthright of his kind. With the power afforded to him by the Mysterium Xaxes, Mankar slowly drew in mortals from across Tamriel to join in a secret cult, the Mythic Dawn. Then, he set in motion his plans. On the 27th of Last Seed, 3E 433, catastrophe struck the Empire as Geldol Septim, Enman Septim, and Ebel Septim, the sons of the Emperor, were simultaneously assassinated by the mysterious cult of the Mythic Dawn. Reeling in shock, a contingent of Blades immediately sought to spirit the Emperor out of the Imperial City to safety through a secret underground route leading past the Imperial prisons. There, the escape party happened upon an unknown prisoner, the last of Uriel's heroes. Recognizing the mysterious inmate as a face from his dreams, Uriel entrusted the prisoner with the Amulet of Kings and charged him to deliver it safely into the hands of Joffrey, Grand Master of the Blades. The Emperor would be cut down by Mythic Dawn agents moments later. Ever since Akatosh had gifted the Amulet of Kings to Queen Alessia thousands of years ago, Tamriel had been shielded from the wrath of the Daedra, and while powerful conjurers could summon Daedra into the realm, the Princes of Oblivion could not invade Tamriel of their own volition. Now, the pact between Akatosh and the Dragonborn rulers of Man had been severed. Across Tamriel, Oblivion gates opened up, and from their dreadful maws, hordes of Dremora poured forth. The Oblivion crisis had begun. The nameless prisoner ventured to Waynon Priory, where he delivered the Amulet of Kings into Joffrey's care. There, the Grand Master of the Blades informed them that the only way to stop the invasion was to have a Dragonborn prince relight the dragonfires in the Temple of the One while wearing the Amulet of Kings, thereby restoring the covenant with Akatosh. The problem was, the Dragonborn line ran through the blood of the Septims, and the Septims had all been assassinated, all the legitimate ones in any case. In the city of Kvatch lived a man named Martin, a priest of the Nine Divines, completely unaware of his true parentage. In him, the salvation of Tamriel now lay. They arrived too late, for Kvatch was already in flames. A massive Oblivion gate had opened just outside the city's main gate. Hordes of Daedra had poured forth, taking the city guard completely by surprise and laying waste to the town. Here, Uriel's chosen prisoner entered through the Oblivion gate, closing it from within, stymieing the Dremoric menace and earning himself a new epithet, the Hero of Kvatch. During the chaos, a young priest had ferried many civilians into the Chapel of Akatosh, sheltering them from the hellfire and saving their lives. There, the Hero of Kvatch found him amongst a crowd of survivors. At first, young Martin was hesitant to accept the gravity of his destiny. However, he eventually agreed to go back with the hero to Waynon Priory. Nevertheless, the Mythic Dawn remained one step ahead of them, for upon their return, assassins of the cult had already struck and made off with the Amulet of Kings. Despite this setback, Martin, Joffrey and the hero made their way to the ancient Akaviri stronghold of Cloud Ruler Temple, ancestral stronghold of the Blades. There, the Dragon Guard, whose ancestors had once served Remen Cyrodiil, now declared this new bastard priest to be Martin Septim, the rightful Dragonborn Emperor of Tamriel. Meanwhile, gates continued to open throughout the continent, heralding misery and destruction wherever they manifested into being. The situation was particularly tragic in Alinor. Nestled in the heart of the ancient High Elf homeland was the Crystal Tower, one of the oldest structures in Tamriel, which alongside the Adamantine Tower in Balfiera and the White Gold Tower in High Rock, made up the primordial pillars that stabilized the fabric of the mortal world. When Oblivion gates opened across Somerset, countless Altmer fled to their beloved tower, believing its ancient magics would protect them from the Daedra. This was to no avail, for the infernal servants of Dagon conjured massive tremors which collapsed the most important monument in Elvendom and killed the thousands of souls inside. Meanwhile, things were going about as poorly in the east. Although still reeling from the disappearance of the Tribunal, the Dunmer put up a vicious fight against the Dremora host. The city of Uldrune was an ancient stronghold, built inside the carcass of a long-dead colossal Emperor Crab. When Marunis' horde descended upon the city, the great wizards of House Redoran reanimated the massive crustacean, essentially making their very city fight for them. A valiant effort, but to no avail, for Uldrune fell all the same, and the Dunmer were massacred. Not every province in Tamriel was caught on the back foot. The Argonians of Black Marsh were a people bound to the Hist, a species of massive, hyper-intelligent primordial trees who created the lizard folk and maintained a telepathic link with them. With infinite foresight, the Hist foresaw the Oblivion crisis before it happened. Through the tree's sacred sap, the Argonians were made stronger, faster, and able to endure endless pain. Thus, when the Oblivion gates opened in Black Marsh, the lizardmen poured right into them, invading the invaders themselves with such merciless fury that Dagon's lieutenants had to close the gates in that region to stop themselves from being overrun. Back in Cyrodiil, Martin Septim, the Blades, and the Hero of Kvatch had begun the first steps in their plan to end the infernal invasion for good. After some investigative work, the hero managed to disguise themselves as a member of the Mythic Dawn and infiltrate one of their secret meetings. There they encountered Mankar Camorin, but before the hero could reclaim the amulet, Mankar escaped into oblivion through a portal. This time, however, the side of good had something to show for their efforts, for Mankar had left behind something important, the Mysterium Xarxes. Through the very examination of Dagon's infernal tome, Martin deduced that he could reopen a portal directly to Mankar's location in Oblivion with the help of 3 artifacts: a Daedric artifact, a Great Welkind Stone, and the Blood of the Divines. These tasks were entrusted to the Hero of Kvatch. Finding an artifact of one of the Daedric princes came first, although the histories are unclear which prince's object of power was sacrificed. Next came the Great Welkind Stone, which the hero found in the ancient Ayleid ruins of Miskakend, a remnant of the last time Daedra had walked freely on Tamriel under the patronage of depraved Ayleid princes. Finally, the Blood of the Divines was obtained through a comic loophole. In the ancient ruins of Sancretor, where Dragonborn emperors had been buried since the days of Alessia, was interred the armor of Tiber Septim, where still remained the residue of blood from when the mortal who became a god was still a man. Unfortunately, even with all 3 relics acquired, one more was needed before a portal could be opened to Mankar, a great sigil stone, the anchor to the largest of the Oblivion gates. Thus, Martin made the risky decision to allow a great gate to open outside the city of Bruma, enabling the Daedra to launch a full invasion of the city. The battle outside Bruma was brutal, with soldiers from across Cyrodiil clashing with the endless Dremora host, and Emperor Martin, donned in the armor of his forefather Talos, at the head of the fray. As the melee raged, the Hero of Kvatch dove into the Great Gate, seizing its sigil stone and closing the portal. Bruma was saved. Finally, a portal could be opened directly to Mankar Camorin's location, and thus the Hero of Kvatch journeyed through it and entered into Gaia Alata, a small slice of oblivion created by Mankar himself, a reflection of the paradise he would create once Tamriel had been purified by its rightful Daedric owners. But Mankar's paradise was an illusion, the delusional dream of a deranged madman, and finally, the hero chosen by Uriel VII in the Imperial prison cut down the insane assassin of emperors and recovered the Amulet of Kings. With the amulet back in their possession, Martin and the hero rushed for the Imperial city, where they intended to relight the Dragonfires and restore the Covenant of Akatosh. But once again, they were too late. With his chief servant dead, Marunis Dagon had launched a last-ditch all-out assault upon the Imperial city, in which he personally led the charge as a massive, nigh invulnerable avatar of himself. The Veil of Oblivion was torn, the Dragonfires rendered useless, and Dagon himself stood in the heart of Tamriel, intent on its destruction. After he and the hero fought their way to the Temple of the One, Martin acknowledged the futility of renewing the old Pact of Akatosh. It would not banish Dagon now that his physical form walked freely upon the mortal plane. Now, only the greatest sacrifice would close shut the jaws of Oblivion. So it was that Emperor Martin, the last of the line of Septim, shattered the Amulet of Kings, transforming himself into an avatar of Akatosh, and handily defeating Dagon in the form of that great golden dragon, before eternally committing his mortal soul to the divine. The Oblivion crisis was over. It was a bittersweet victory. With Martin's sacrifice, no Daedric prince could ever again invade the realm. However, with his death, the Septim line was now extinct, and the descendants of Talos Stormcrown no more. Greatly weakened by Dagon's invasion, and now without its ruling dynasty, the empire began to disintegrate. It was here, at this weakest point, that what remained of Tiber Septim's realm would face its greatest foe. Deep in Alinor, a faction of Altmer had begun the process of seizing power, with the intent of reclaiming their ancestral lands and taking their revenge on the empire that had once laid them so low. The sun was setting on the Age of Men, and with the new dawn came a new Merethic age. The Great Thalmor War loomed on the horizon. We're going to talk about it in the near future, and cover the battles of many other fantasy, sci-fi and space opera universes, so make sure you have subscribed and pressed the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing as it helps immensely, and don't forget to comment. We'll try to read and respond to every comment, as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.